ladies and gentlemen, according to the watch and Ricky, it's time to start. But before I get into the material, I want you to know that I have been requested to request that no cell phones be used during this program. So if you would abide by that, we would certainly appreciate it. Well, I'm just delighted with the turnout tonight. I'm not surprised at all because I know that people are really looking forward to hearing our program. So I want to welcome you to the second lecture in the BTV Resident Lecture Series. Tonight, we are in for a very special treat because Margaret Whillock will be our speaker. Before I turn the lectern over to Margaret, I want to tell you a bit about her amazing career, which has earned her widespread recognition and numerous honors. However, because Margaret has requested that I keep it short, and because I'm going to honor her request, you're going to hear an abbreviated report on Margaret's life accomplishments. Margaret grew up in Altus, Arkansas, the daughter of wonderful parents to whom she credits her dedication to her life of service. Margaret graduated from Fayetteville High School, and after earning a bachelor's degree in science education from the University of Arkansas, taught school for several years in Rogers and Springdale. She left her career in teaching to take on a full-time job as a fundraiser. Her talent for such things yielded valuable monetary support for such things as North Arkansas Symphony Orchestra, the Arkansas Arts Center, and the Baptist Health Foundation. Margaret served the University of Arkansas in several important positions, and as a result was awarded the University of Arkansas Chancellor's Medal for what was described as her lasting and valuable impact on the university and the state of Arkansas. Margaret's special honors include, but are not limited to, being named to the top 100 women in Arkansas and being inducted into the Fayetteville Public Education Foundation Hall of Honor. Along the way, Margaret had 6 beloved children, which, whenever possible, she involved in her professional life. And some of those are represented here tonight. But perhaps what is the most notable and unique thing about Margaret's career is the fact that she was invited by her close and personal friend, Hillary Clinton, to accept the position of Deputy Director of the White House Visitor's Office. And this is what we're going to hear about tonight. Please welcome Margaret Whillock, our second distinguished speaker of the resident seminar speakers. Margaret, please.
Got it. Well, thank you, Helen. That was very kind of you. I really appreciate it. I am so glad to see so many of my good friends here. You think we can turn that light off that's in my eyes? Or this one right here? There, now I can see my good friends that are here. Thank you all for coming out tonight. My goodness, I did not expect such a large crowd. I am very flattered. I do not give lectures, I just talk to you, okay? And I also want to give a very special welcome to my 3 great-grandsons, ages 4 through 13, who are here with my granddaughter Rachel and her husband Neil. My daughter Sally is with me. And now then, I want to talk a little bit more about you all. Almost everyone in this room has met Bill Clinton and Hillary too. And you all, hey, I see some people waving their hands at me, and you all have a Bill Clinton's story to tell. And there are people like the Morris Henrys, the Jim Blairs, the president's own cousin, Roy Clinton. They're here tonight, and they have fabulous stories to tell. You'll have to get them to talk to you about their experiences too. But I was going to tell you about when I lived at the Big Yellow House down from Old Main with my 6 children, and first met my husband Carl, of course, and first met Hillary Clinton. But since I decided I'm short of time, I have too many pictures to show you, that I am going to skip through that and just tell you that Hillary and I, when we first met, became very good friends immediately. We had kind of a bond because we had the same interests, and she and I started a conversation that day, and it's gone on for 50 years. We never finished the conversation. Whenever I see her, we just pick it right up like it was yesterday. And so the other thing that I'm going to kind of skip through is I was going to tell you about how I got the job at the White House, but I'm going to make that brief too. You miss all that, thank goodness you can say. I did not apply for it. My husband was offered the position of going to the White House liaison and special assistant to the president in the second Clinton administration. So we took Caroline, our 7-year-old granddaughter, who was living with us at the time, packed our furniture, went off to Washington, D.C. Carl started to work at the White House area, and I thought I was going to go to museums, read good books, take care of Caroline. I had retired. I'd raised all those 6 children. I'd had these jobs. I was ready for retirement. But instead, I got a call one day from the White House, and they said, the First Lady wants to talk to you about a job. Well, I knew about Hillary's jobs. Her jobs were things like, could you get 500 volunteers for the Moms March? Or maybe, we need 300 extra people to decorate for Christmas. Could you help us get those? Well, you can imagine how surprised I was when she offered me a job to come to the White House and work directly for the Clintons. Although I had a nice title as Deputy Director of the Visitor's Office, it really had nothing to do with my job. I was doing special projects for them, taking care of a lot of their visitors that came in. My office was an interesting office. The visitor's office had to clear every person that came to the White House. We had 1.5 million people every year. That is a lot of people when I was there. And let me tell you that 1.2 million of those people wanted their picture made with the Clintons. So I met a lot of them. And plus, I did tours, which I will tell you more about later. But now then, I'm going to show you the first picture, and this is when Bill Clinton had offered my husband the job of coming back to Washington, where he'd been as a young man. There is Carl with our granddaughter, Caroline. There is Lydia, Caroline's doll, and Lydia even has her own doll, you'll notice. And there is President Bill Clinton. And we had all been to a radio address, and he offered Carl the job of being the White House special assistant and liaison. So there we were. Next slide, please. Okay, I'm gonna, when you see people, you always want to know about their children. And I was going to show you about my children and make remarks about them, but I'm going to run through this very quickly because we're cutting our time. And this is my brother, Rudy Moore Jr., who had been Bill Clinton's campaign manager and chief of staff at the governor's office. He was a lawyer here in Fayetteville and a judge, and here he is with his family and Hillary when I had gone to work at the White House. Next. Here we are, a Christmas party, And there on the right is daughter Sally, who's with me. You see my husband Carl. We have Chelsea, the Clintons, my daughter Jenny. My children grew up here in Fayetteville and went to high school here. And lo and behold, there on the end is Rachel. You can see her today, the mother of three. And that was a wonderful party at the White House, our first one. Next. And here is my oldest son, Larry. He came to the White House to see me too, of course. They all came several times. And there he is with Annie and Jack and the President and First Lady. Annie and Jack were 2 and 4 years old, and they were not a bit interested in waiting on the President to come downstairs or getting his picture made with us in the diplomatic reception room. What they were interested in was seeing the White House pets. Socks. Next. And here is Annie with Socks the cat. And I know you all have heard of Socks the cat, the White House pet. She really did roam all over the house. It could drive you crazy at times. And she had her own bed close to my wing, so I saw a lot of Socks. But anyway, and the best story I have about this picture is the little girl who came to see us, Socks the cat, who lived in Philadelphia. The President used to send me these little cryptic notes. They'd be little pieces of paper, maybe 3 by 5 or 6. And his penmanship was, and is to this day, terrible. He should have been a doctor. But anyway, none of us could read his penmanship. One day the Secret Service guy comes by. He says, "Here, this is for you," and gives me this piece of paper. I opened it up and I said, "What is this?" When we deciphered it, we realized it said, "Met 5-year-old girl, Philadelphia, wants to come see Socks the cat. Okay, call her. Name is Smith. Philadelphia. Daddy's an architect." Well, the Secret Service guy said, "Bye, good luck, Margaret," and left me with it. And I thought that over for about a day or so. I thought, how am I going to do that? How am I going to find this 5-year-old child in Philadelphia named Smith? And I had the foresight to think of my daughter, who is an architect, and I said, does the National Association of Architects have all the architects in each state listed? And sure enough, they did. So we got the names of the architects from Pennsylvania. We found 13 Smiths in Philadelphia. And I thought, what to do? It didn't say any of them had a 5-year-old child. And so I got all the phone numbers together, and I thought, I'm just going to go through this one at a time and see if I can find them. Well, lo and behold, I was lucky. The third phone call, this man answered. He had come to see Bill Clinton while he was in Philadelphia. He'd been on a rope line, shook his hand. Bill Clinton said they could come to the White House, and I said, I'm your person. And so we arranged it, and they came. And I wish you could see that darling little girl. I wish I had her picture. She had on a gored skirt, and it had Socks the cat on every gore in her skirt, about 5 inches tall. She had a Socks the cat vest. She had a Socks the cat t-shirt. She had Socks the cat shoes and socks, both. And last but not least, she had a darling Socks the cat headband. And she had the most wonderful time. Next. And of course, she also got to see Buddy the dog. Oop, we miss Buddy the dog back there. As everyone knows about Buddy, he was Bill Clinton's just companion. Bill Clinton loved that dog. Next. Here is my daughter Jenny, that some of you know, and she and her family are in the Oval Office with the Clintons at next picture. And this is a very special picture for me. There is my son, Benjamin Carter, who lives in town, his wife, Jana, and at that time, their 2-year-old son, who was named Carl Whillock Carter. And of course, there's his grandfather, my husband, Carl Simpson Whillock. And then there's Bill Clinton on the left. And that was after a radio address, I think. But anyway, they had their picture made. Bill Clinton's people sent the picture to the little boy, but they didn't address it to the parents. The envelope said, for Mr. Carl Whillock Carter. And there inside was this picture, and underneath the picture, Bill Clinton had written, "Thank you for bringing your grandfather to see me. Your friend, Bill Clinton." And that's why we love him to this day. Next. And oh, that's Sally at a reception up in the White House. Next. We did a lot of pictures. Next. Here we are. Here I am on Air Force One. Oh my goodness. I got to ride in Air Force One several times. What a great experience that was. I had a grand time. And we are coming home to Arkansas. And you see there I am behind Hillary. There's my good friend Ann McCoy, two other ladies from Arkansas. Bruce Lindsay is sitting there with his papers spread out. Bruce is one of Bill Clinton's main people. He is to this day. Bruce never stops working, as you can see from that photograph. We were coming home so Hillary could speak at a celebration of the 50th anniversary of the Women's Committee of Little Rock, who helped put the public schools back together after the racial problems they had. And so that was a glorious trip. Next. And here, this is another good story. There's Caroline. I used to bring her to work with me when she had a day off from school. I had a tiny TV that I think we turned on twice in all those years because the people in the White House were so good to her. There was always something for her to do. On this particular day, she was in my office. My husband, Carl, came by my office, and I said, "Oh my gosh, I got to go run and do something." And he said, "Well, I'll take Caroline, and we'll wait outside in Betty Curry's office for the president and Dan Glickman because we're going to be talking to him." And so I said, "Okay, I'll be there in 20 minutes. Well, 30 minutes later, I didn't even get there. When I got there, they were not there because Bill Clinton got through early. He opened the door and said, Dan Glickman, by the way, was Secretary of Agriculture. And he said, "Dan, you and Carl, come on in." And he looked and he saw Caroline. He said, "Caroline, you come in and sit on the sofa with us." And so I'm going to tell you the way Caroline, the 7-year-old child, told it to me. She said, "I sat on the sofa, and those two men just talked and talked to the president. They talked about money. They talked about people. They just talked and talked about it." And she said, all of a sudden, her grandfather, she called Carl. She said, all of a sudden, Carl said, just like I knew. He said, shook his finger at the president and said, "Mr. President, sign this agri budget. It's the best we're going to do this year. Sign it." And she said, Bill Clinton looked at Carl, and I thought, oh my goodness. And he just picked up a pen and signed it and didn't say another word. So when the White House photographer came in, obviously it was close to Halloween. There they are when the agri budget was signed for 98 or 99. Next. And there I am with Caroline again at her school, the John Eaton School. The First Lady had decided to go to see these children at this particular school, and they all gathered, and she made a special announcement that day. And everyone who worked in the administration and had a child at the John Eaton School was invited to come later and have their picture made. And there we are. The main part of this day for me, that was fun, and I love doing that. But Hillary said to me beforehand, "Come ride with me, Margaret." She said, "You don't have to worry about getting up to the school. come ride with me. And so it was wonderful to ride in her limousine through the streets of Washington, D.C., with all the motorcycles and the cars in front of us and the cars behind us, and drive up to the John Eaton School and get out and go in. Next. And this is one of my favorite pictures. It's in the Blue Room, which is so beautiful. I wish I had a picture of it up there and we'd talk about that for 20 minutes. But anyway, that is one of the Christmas pictures. And please notice the green velvet tree skirt. Someone here may recognize why that tree skirt is so unique. The Clintons had sent a green velvet square to all 50 states in the U.S. and said, would you please have a needle person embroider this square and put the name of your state on it, and we're going to make a tree skirt of it. And there it is. And it was just like people going up to Old Main to see their name on Senior Walk. People would come in and they'd walk around and they'd say, where's South Dakota? Where's Washington? Where's North Carolina? And today you can see that tree skirt down at the Clinton Center in Little Rock. Next. And I put this in so I could talk about the tours a little bit. You can see it's Christmas time. Used to, I'm not sure how they do it today, but when I was there, if you lined up in front of the White House gate by 7:30 in the morning, you could get a walk-through tour of the White House. And people sometimes would be out there at 5 and 5:30 in the morning in all kinds of weather, and they would be in line, and here they go in. They are going to get a walk-through tour of the house. And in every room in the house is someone with khaki pants and navy blue blazer, and they would answer questions, but mostly these people were moving at a pretty fast clip. Now then, those people answering the questions were Secret Service agents, by the way. They did all the tours except the ones that were done by people like me when they were busy. And sometimes I would do a tour and we'd have 2 people, 12 people, as many as 125 people, and we would have to divide them up. And you could get a special White House guided tour through your congressional office, hopefully, or else through a government agency. And if you were on a congressional tour, you came into the reception room, which was right next to my office, really, and you could go in and sign the guest book, and it was dated the day you were there, and you can go to Little Rock today and see that guest book in the Clinton Center. Next. Okay, there we are in the diplomatic room, and it's Christmas time, the diplomatic reception room downstairs. Next. And here is some of the Christmas decorations. They were breathtakingly beautiful. My pictures do not do them justice. Here you are looking across the entrance hall to the front door of the White House. That is what you see on TV a lot. Next. And you've all seen this on TV. You've seen the president walking on the red carpet. The Hail to the Chief is playing, and sometimes he has a distinguished visitor with him, sometimes not. He's going to do a press conference, probably. Next. And this is one of my favorite. This was in the entrance on the right as you came in the front door. And the first time I saw it, I thought, oh my gosh, who wrapped all those packages? What beautiful wrapping and paper and ribbons. And I looked more closely, and they are made of spun sugar. We had a super duper pastry chef, and he made all of those. And he made many of the decorations that Christmas. Next. I neglected to say that my office was in charge of several things at the White House, and among them was the lighting of the National Christmas tree. And that was a lot of work and a tremendous undertaking. You know, it's out on the eclipse. You've probably seen it in the news. And we would have people like Tony Bennett who would come, maybe some well-known entertainers were there, and it was a wonderful evening. And this is at the party after the lighting of the National Christmas tree. And we had, and it's Caroline, of course, again, and we've had a wonderful time, and there were a lot of people there. Renee Fleming was there, and I was sort of in charge of seeing that she was well taken care of. She brought two beautiful little girls with her. You all may know her. She is still a very famous opera singer today. A lovely, lovely woman. Anyway, after we greeted Bill Clinton, we were walking across the room, and all of a sudden this man's kind of coming toward us, and I don't really know him or anything, and we're getting ready to go around, and he looks down at Caroline and he says, "Would you like your picture made with me?" And I thought, she's going to deck him. She is not used to that because he just reached down and picked her up. But she had said yes, and here's the picture. Do any of you recognize Sammy Sosa, the baseball player? This is when he was at the height of his glory, and everyone wanted his autograph at that party, and it's such a great picture. Next. And here we are with Al Gore and Chipper, and I will put in a word for the Vice President's office. They were easy to work with. They were such professional people. I had some interaction with the Gores themselves at different occasions to do some work for them. And Al Gore was portrayed in the press as cold, stiff, and unfriendly. We all found him at the White House very friendly, outgoing, warm, brilliant, and he was wonderful with children. Next. It's Easter time. My office also did the Easter egg hunt, and the year I was in charge of the Easter egg hunt, you will not believe this, we had 35,000 people on the lawn. I'm telling you, that is too many people to invite to a party. It was just mayhem. But it's always that way, I think. And it was a wonderful day. Next. And this is to show you that, you know, we gave away those wooden eggs so many of you have seen and some of you have. We gave every person, all 35,000 people, got a White House wooden egg when they left. And here is, I'm in the kitchen, and the chefs dyed over 7,000 real eggs. Those are real eggs they had boiled and dyed, and those were used in the actual egg roll itself. And the wooden eggs were used to hide elsewhere. Next. And here is at the end of the day. We were so tired. I'm with two people from my office. We climbed in the basket all the children had been in and had our picture made. Next. And these are Easter eggs, blown Easter eggs. There is one representing each state in the Union, done by a prominent artist in that state. And the Clintons invited someone in every year, invited artists across the country to send their eggs in, and they were on display. Next. In the main hallway when you were coming in, if you went on the 7:30 tour or the 8:30 tour, you had to walk by this. There's Hillary looking at them by the First Lady's garden. Next. Okay, my office also did ceremonies for dignitaries that came to town, for the heads of state, be it a prime minister, be it a president. They were there on official business, and we didn't have too many of these ceremonies, but they were just wonderful. They were very exacting. Do you see in the middle where the men are marching in their red and white coats? That is a fife and drum corps that is a part of the United States Marine Band, and they are playing songs from 1776. And there on the left, you can see my head down there in that crowd because I'm very anxious that everyone is in their right place. We had so many people, and you had to use certain protocol that we would take big tapes, pieces of tape, and put on the ground, and we would write people's name on it, like Albright, for Madeline Albright, where she was supposed to stand, so they would know where to go to when their part of the ceremony was over. Next. And up on the right-hand corner, you see the driveway into the White House. Flags were out. The Premier of China was in town, and we were welcoming him. And then there you see him standing and speaking with Bill Clinton behind him. Of course, he had an interpreter, and then the president spoke. Down here is the state dinner we had that night. Was absolutely gorgeous. There is the Nancy Reagan red china that she bought for the White House that we all loved, and a light red tablecloth, and the most beautiful flowers. Next. And here are some of the beautiful flowers. The woman in the top left had worked in the White House a total of 30 years when she retired, and she was so talented. Now think about this for a few moments. They had a very tiny florist shop, but they had more refrigeration than they had the shop. And if we were having a state dinner or something really big, there was a driveway outside their back door, and they would set up tables on that driveway and put tents over it to keep out the sun and the rain. And they would arrange all these flowers out there that were breathtakingly beautiful. The flowers were delivered twice a week, every week, from all over the world. Special occasions, they came more often, of course. Every day in the White House at that time, there were 54 bouquets of fresh flowers. And if we had a state dinner or some other big deal, they would do as many as 170 state bouquets. So that's a lot of flowers. Next. Here is Roland, the chef. I've not spoken about him before. He was so good to all of us. And he has made a special dessert for the dinner for the president of Argentina. And I got to go to that dinner and be there for the whole works. And it was so much fun because one thing we were so interested in was the president was from Argentina. What do you associate in music with Argentina? The tango, right. And so Robert Duvall, the movie star, was married to this beautiful, beautiful woman from Argentina. And he came to the White House and they practiced and they danced later. I went to the practice. I got to see them actually dancing. It was so much fun. And then they were part of the entertainment after the dinner. They danced the tango, and I'm telling you, they had it down to perfection. Next. Why do I have Mary Poppins here? Why? Because I couldn't find a good picture. I wanted otherwise. But anyway, Mary Poppins, Julie Andrews, came to the White House for one of the Easter egg rolls, not while I was there. She was a special guest, and she read to the children. We had special guests from very different parts of the country, and they would be on a low platform, and they would wooden platforms, maybe 6 inches tall or something, and they would read to children. And it was a really, really hot Washington day. I was about to melt. No one was allowed in the White House. You know, you have 35,000 people. You can't let one in, then you have to let them all in. And so no one, absolutely no one, could go in the White House unless they had an all-White House pass, which I was so fortunate to have. Hillary Clinton had given me an all-White House pass when I took the job. She said, you can go anywhere in the house from the cellar to the attic, and that's true. So I went over to Julie Andrews and her agent, Steve Sauer, and I said, would you like to go into the house to my air-conditioned office, my tiny air-conditioned office? And they both immediately said, yes, yes, and got up and came in, and we went in my very small office. There was room for a desk, 2 chairs in front of the desk, a file cabinet behind me, I'd put a mirror on the wall, and I had a tiny, tiny television on the file cabinet. That's really and truly about all that was in it. They turned my desk into a closet, my office into a closet, I heard later. Oh, I also had my own telephone and my own door I could shut. That was very important. But anyway, so Julie Andrews came in with her agent, and we sat there and talked for about 45 minutes or longer, and she cooled off, and it was time for her to go back out and do the next reading she was due for. And so I was in touch with her after that. She sent me a lovely thank you letter, and she also sent me some children's books that she and her daughter had written. And so time passed. I came back to Little Rock. I'd always supported the repertory theater, so I wrote her a letter and asked her if she would come and do a benefit in Little Rock, Arkansas at the Repertory Theater. I knew it was a long shot, but she accepted and came to Little Rock. You can read all about it in the Democrat Gazette with pictures, but it was so wonderful to have her there. That was one of my favorite things that happened. And next picture, when she was in Little Rock, she asked me to bring my grandchildren and come down. I'd met her plane and everything, and said, come down to the Capitol Hotel and bring your grandchildren and have tea. Well, what a nice thing to say. She just didn't know how many, I had 12 grandchildren total. But anyway, only 3 lived in Little Rock. One of them's one of my guests here tonight. There is Rachel when she was how old, 15, 16, about it. And there is Julie Andrews standing by her. Annie and Jack have grown a little. There they are. And they're my daughter and my daughter-in-law. And we had tea with Julie Andrews at the Capitol Hotel. But we didn't have tea from the kitchen downstairs. Julie Andrews traveled with her own tea kettle and her own tea. And she made us tea that she had brought with her. And also we had refreshments, and we had a wonderful time. Next. Okay, this is, I'm going to go through this quickly. You know, I told you I got to go to a number of state dinners, which were that's the ultimate at the White House. That's what you want to do. And I got to go to those state dinners because A, somebody's plane would be late, B, they'd get sick, C, one had a car wreck, things happen to people, you know, they can't show up. So I was the person who would always go and fill in, which was a lot of fun. I met interesting people, of course. But one day in the mail on 28th Street, Carl and I received, to my surprise and his, our very own invitation from the Clintons to come to a state dinner for the King of Morocco. What a thrill not to have to work it, to just go and have a marvelous time. It was a glorious June evening, and it was such a special time. Next. The King of Morocco was there with he was not married at that time. He was very young, it seemed to me. But anyway, and his sister was with him. She was a princess. And there I am greeting Bill Clinton. And the king is standing next to Bill Clinton, but you can't see him. And then Hillary, and then the princess. And we're going through the reception line. And it was just a fabulous evening. And will you please notice where Bill Clinton is looking? He's not looking at me. He's looking at over my shoulder for my husband. And that was a great evening. Next. Okay. This book, Eleanor Roosevelt, As I Knew Her. Oh my goodness. This was just a magnificent gift I got from a 91 or 2-year-old woman, I can't remember which right now, who came to the White House right before we were closing out the term. And Mrs. Summerall, get this, had been Eleanor Roosevelt's private secretary when Franklin Roosevelt was governor of New York. And then when he was elected president, Mrs. Summerall, had moved to Washington and was her private secretary in the White House until the 1940s, when she got married. And it was the tail end of the Depression before the war had started. And you had, if you married and you had a job that a man could fill, you had to give it up. So she had to quit her job with Mrs. Roosevelt. But she had worked with her either 10 or 12 years. I started to read back through the book and see if I could figure out how long, but I couldn't. But it was fascinating. She loved Mrs. Roosevelt. She did not tolerate any criticisms, evidently. She told us about when she worked at the White House, she just drove her car to the front gate and went through it. It wasn't closed or anything. She drove her car, parked it in the parking lot on the side of the house, walked up the front steps, and went in the house. No one said, they might say hello, and that's all. And then she went upstairs to her office on the second floor. So she had grand stories to tell, and the White House curators were overjoyed and delighted to have met her. And next slide. And there she is. She sent me that book after she had had her tour and came through there. But I just thought that was pretty amazing to have someone that had worked with Eleanor Roosevelt that long. Now then, next. This tour, I put in because it shows how I feel about my time in the White House. It was a hectic job. If you got there, you had to get there at 6 in the morning to do your work, because by 7:30 it began wham, 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 and there was something all day till you could get away to go home. And it was a wonderful job. I was so fortunate to have it. And here we are coming in from a press conference in the Rose Garden. It's another one of those bitter cold days. And Hillary's getting ready to go in the Oval Office, and I'm getting ready to go to my office. And we just had such a good time always. Next. Okay, this is my last day at the White House. The White House photographer came around and was taking pictures, and he asked us where we would like our picture made. So immediately Carl said, in the dining room by Lincoln's portrait, and that is where we went and had our picture made on the last day that I was working in the White House, and he was too. And do you all know that there's a plaque on the mantle in that dining room, and John Adams was the first president to live in the White House. He moved in the 1800s. And Washington did not live there. And on November the 2nd, his first night in the White House, John Adams wrote a letter home to Abigail. You all know about Abigail, of course, the woman always looking out for us. And he wrote her and said, may none but honest and wise men rule under this roof. And that sums up what the White House was when I was there. It was such a privilege and an honor just to go every day through that gate and look up and see the American flag waving over the White House, and know what it meant to people all over the world, to have been able to walk where John Adams walked, where Hoover walked, where Taft walked, Theodore Roosevelt, all of those people, that I was in the White House and learned so much about it. I would encourage you to read the book, 1814. It's about the War of 1812, when the British burned the White House. And there are many other ways to learn more about the house itself. It is a fascinating place with all of its shops and the things that are going on in it. There's a swimming pool, there's a bowling alley, there's a movie theater, there's just all sorts of things. And now then, I didn't get to tell you about some of my favorite people either that came to the White House that I interacted with, like Harrison Ford. You all know who Harrison Ford is, Indiana Jones, and Cal Ripken, Princess Victoria of Sweden. I had all sorts of people like that. But most important to the Clintons were that all the people from Arkansas who came to the White House got to come and have a good time and see it, and I was a part of that. It was a very humbling job, an exhilarating job, and an honor. Okay, it's your turn. What do you want to ask me? I think that's the last of it. Yeah. Okay. Doug has a question. Oh, getting that to work is the thing.
Tell the story about Caroline bugging out and eating at
With the-
Ebbets Bar and Grill across the street.
Okay. I'm a great admirer of the Secret Service. When I was there, they were run from the Treasury Department, and they were just very high caliber men. And I used to laugh and say, when I went to work and had Caroline with me, when she came through the gate, the officer on the gate that checked you in would probably call up to the main Secret Service office and say, Margaret's brought Caroline to work today, because eventually this man that is first cousin of or of the lawyer, your friend Osborne's, Rick Osborne's first cousin, I believe he is, was in charge of Secret Service at the White House when I was there. So anyway, one day Caroline comes to work, and she went off with the Secret Service guys. They were taking her somewhere, and Sally and a friend of mine came in and said, I don't care what you're doing, Margaret. I don't care how busy you are. I don't care who wants something. You get up and get your coat and walk over across the street to the old Ebbett Grill and see Caroline. And so I did go over there to see Caroline, and there she sat at this big round table in the old Ebbett Grill, which had been there since Revolutionary War times, and there she sat with about 8 Secret Service guys, and they went over there every day to have breakfast after the tours were through, and they kind of got things going, That was where they went, and they got their assignments, and they had papers and briefcases, and there she sat in the middle of all these men in their navy blue blazers and their khaki pants, eating pancakes calmly. So that is one good story, yes. Anyone else have a question? Yes, Lewis has a question for me. Lewis Epley. I thought somebody'd ask about Cal Ripken. Go ahead.
Were you there when the Razorback band came down?
I am so sorry. I was not there the first administration. I missed that. I was there when all the Barbara Mashburn singers came. You all remember Barbara Mashburn? I see heads shaking from here in town, and she had that choir, and every year she and Peggy Park would come and bring all these people in the choir to sing at the White House during the Christmas parties. Excuse me, the nighttime Christmas parties. So yes. Next question. Okay, were you there when the Razorback band went? Lewis, did you go with the Razorback band to Washington?
Yes.
Oh, well, what happened? Tell us a little more.
With a start like that, what is Caroline doing today?
Well, you're going to love this. After graduating from the University of Oklahoma and marrying a very nice man, today she is living in the Oklahoma City, Norman area, and she has a little boy 4 and a baby 2 days old, a baby girl. Lily Louise. Oh, and what else? She works as a fundraiser. I love it. I love it. That's her main job. She works for the Oklahoma Medical Research Foundation. You got that? I do, finally. Okay, Lewis was going to tell us about being there at the White House with the Razorback band, weren't you, Lewis?
Well, no, let's skip it.
Oh, skip it? That's no good. Okay. Who else has something they would like to know about the White House or some of the people? Helen?
Hold on, Helen.
Always heard about the importance of the Lincoln bedroom.
Oh.
Hold on. Repeat, please.
I've always heard about the importance of the Lincoln bedroom and who got to stay in there. Were you a part of those assignments?
Yes, I had a little bit to do with it, not too much. I did get to stay in the Lincoln bedroom during the first administration. I got to spend a week in the Queen's bedroom when I went up there for a meeting in that first administration. But anyway, yes, the Lincoln bedroom is very impressive. Some of you sitting here tonight may have spent the night in it. The press always made it look like it had to be really rich people who got to stay there. That wasn't the case at all. It was really just the personal friends of the first family that stayed there. Did any of you stay there? Oh, one did. Over there, Roy, his cousin. See there? I knew that. Okay, good. And the Lincoln bedroom is quite beautiful. I cannot say enough about how beautiful all of the furnishings of the White House are. They are fantastic antiques. I have a book about them, and it is amazing how they have traced what each president and first lady have contributed in the way of furnishing or decorative arts or art that hangs on the wall. There's a whole book out of White House art. They have the privilege of choosing their paintings. Some are theirs, but they also have the privilege of going to the National Gallery and choosing what they want to have hanging on their wall. So that's kind of a nice perk, isn't it? All right. Sally wants to tell. Okay.
Hey, Mom, I think this is a really nice story to probably close on, but tell the story about when you were hired, how Hillary said she wanted you to seek out the person standing in the window uncomfortable.
Yeah.
That's a
okay.
good story.
Well, I should have thought of this. I'm glad Sally reminded me of it because it's what I've told the press. When she was running for senator and president, all of us did a lot of press interviews. Some of you did too, I know. And I always told the press this story, and not once did I see it written. When she talked to me about the job and about taking it, she said, "One thing I want you to do, Margaret, is to go to everything that's going on that you can go to, that you are not too busy. You go to receptions, you go to lectures, you go to meetings, you can go to the state dinners, you go whatever we're having, and you look around the room and pick out the person who's miserable at being in the White House. You see that they have a good time and feel good when they leave there." Now, wasn't that a thoughtful thing to do? Because it was so wonderful. You could pick those people out. I could go in the East Room, 300 people. Over there in the far corner, you'd see somebody standing there with their hands kind of clasped, and they're looking down at the floor, and they're kind of rolling their eyes thinking, "What am I doing here? I don't belong here. I'm miserable here," because everybody else is talking and having fun. So I would talk to that person, introduce them to others, and that sort of thing. And I think they did have a good time. And then sometimes those people would be not standing in a corner, but they would be looking out the window. We'd be in the Blue Room, which had such wonderful scenery out the window of the different monuments and such in Washington. And they would be standing there like this. They had their back to the party or whatever, the reception, whatever was going on. They were studying the landscape intently. And so I would always go and talk to those people too and try to get them to come, to have a good time and be glad they were there. So that was a good thing. Okay, what else did I leave out? Probably something. What'd you say? One of my favorite things was Harrison Ford came, or he didn't come to the White House. His wife came with their children and some other people, and I took them through the White House, and the children were absolutely thrilled at being in the White House because they wanted to know about the snipers on the roof, and they wanted to go see them. Well, you know, I couldn't bring myself to that. But anyway, I did take them by the military office, and they got to meet some of the military personnel that are stationed at the White House. But we had a grand time, and that's when he was married to Melissa. And she wrote me a lovely letter later, and lo and behold, the next day I got a phone call, and they said, Harrison Ford and Melissa would like for you to come down to the where they're filming the movie he is in, and it's at the Saks parking lot, and you come down and have dinner with them. It'll be real informal. The crew will be there, and you know, it was a working dinner. So of course I wasn't going to pass up a chance to have dinner with Harrison Ford, the Indiana Jones guy, and because he did not come for the tour, just his family had come. So the lady I talked to said, you bring your family. Well, of course, Carl said he'd go, and my son Ben and Janice said, of course, they would go too. And then Caroline would not go. It was Halloween, or the day before, and she wanted to go to a Halloween party with some of her children. So I let her. But anyway, I didn't want to drag her if she didn't want to go. But I had my picture made with Harrison Ford. You notice you did not see it up there? Because the week after he was at the White, I met him at that, and we ate dinner together. There he was on the cover of People magazine as the sexiest man in America. And it was kind of rainy that night, and really and truly is the worst picture, one of them I ever had made. I just looked woe begone in the rain. Looked like I needed a new raincoat. But anyway, that was one of the good times too. Okay, any other questions? Well, I didn't talk too long, I hope, and I thank you all for being interested. Come talk to me afterwards if you want to, and I'll tell you some more funny stories. Okay, thank you.